Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain an action thriller movie called Children of Men. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The film opens in the year 2027, nearly 2 decades after the last child was born on Earth. The entire human population has become infertile due to unknown factors. This has led to war and global depression, pushing society to the brink of collapse. As a consequence, billions of refugees flee from one crippled country to another. By 2027, Great Britain is the only nation still in existence. Its island geography and totalitarian government have done a good job holding back the desperate refugees. Some of them that manage to slip past the border are arrested, imprisoned, or even executed. The scene then cuts to Theo, a former political activist turned bureaucrat in a coffee shop in London. It is packed with people who are watching breaking news on the television. It turns out that the world's youngest citizen, an 18-year-old, has been stabbed to death by a psychotic criminal. While everyone else is shaken, Theo seems to be indifferent to the news. He grabs his coffee and heads outside to the nearest bus station. Just seconds later, a terrorist bomb attack from an organization named Fishes blows the cafe into smithereens. This results in several casualties, while many more are injured. We then get to know that the Fishes is a militant group that advocates for immigrant rights and wants to topple Britain's government. Theo nonetheless heads to work, indicating that these kinds of events are commonplace in this dystopian world. However, even at work, everyone is mourning the death of the world's youngest person. This irritates Theo, who simply wants to get his job done in order to make money. He then goes to the manager's office and lies that the death has affected him more than expected. The boss empathetically gives him a day off, so Theo leaves his office and hops on a train. A few minutes later, he gets off at a nearby station where he sees holding cells full of illegal immigrants. He casually passes them and walks towards an old man named Jasper who seems to be waiting for him. Old is the new young, and Jasper's looking happy as shit. Theo then gets into Jasper's car and they head towards his home. After a while, they arrive at a lovely cottage which is cleverly hidden in the woods just outside the city. Jasper's wife is mentally ill and spends her day looking at newspaper cutouts about the ongoing crises. Doom scrolling. We all have that illness. There is also a photo of Theo with his ex-wife Julian and their late son on the table. It is obvious that the two men share a long-standing relationship. Later that day, the old man proudly talks about the weed he has grown in the backyard. He even lets Theo have a taste of his new strawberry-flavored strain. Then Jasper changes the subject and brings up the Human Project. It is an elusive organization that is pursuing the solution to the world's infertility problems. Theo seems uninterested, pointing out that even if they have a cure, it is too late to save anything. The world has succumbed to depression to the point that humanity may soon become extinct. Jasper says, "Shut up, man," and then they put on Aphex Twin and laugh hysterically. The following day, Theo returns to his work in central London. The city is drab with infrastructure in decay and crimes happening in every corner. Right outside his office building, two men suddenly grab Theo and push him into a van. They put a cloth over his head and take him to a secret hideout. It is then revealed that the men are members of the terrorist organization called Fishes. In a shocking twist, Theo is then greeted by the group's leader, Julian, who is also his ex-wife. She casually talks to him about how British people are beginning to join their movement for the fair treatment of immigrants. Next, Julian reveals that she needs Theo's help to get transit papers for a young refugee who wants to get to the country's eastern coast. She adds that he can get the documents through his cousin Gary, who works for the government. In exchange, the Fishes will pay him a fat sum of 5,000 quid. Theo desperately needs the money as his job doesn't pay all that well, so he reluctantly agrees, which prompts Julian's men to shove him back in the van. They drop him near his office and tell him to meet a man named Luke at a local bar in 2 days' time. "What time? He's British, he'll be there all day. He gets drunk." That evening, Theo goes to his cousin Gary, a minister who runs a state-sponsored collection of salvage art. Theo makes up a story about his new girlfriend needing a transit paper to meet her sick brother. He says it's very urgent, so Gary helps him with the necessary documents. 2 days later, Theo meets with Luke, the deputy leader of Fishes, at a local bar. He reveals that his cousin gave him joint transit papers, which means he himself would have to escort the young refugee. Theo is willing to do it, but he needs more money from the Fishes. Surprisingly, Luke agrees without hesitation and hands him a photograph of the refugee before leaving. The next day, Theo meets Julian at the outskirts of central London. She leads him to a car where the young refugee named Key and a midwife, Miriam, are waiting for him. Luke is in the driver's seat and they soon head towards Canterbury. However, on the way, their vehicle is ambushed by an armed gang. Luke quickly reverses reverses the car and tries to drive away, but two goons follow them on a motorbike. One of them fires at the car and hits Julian in the neck. A desperate Theo puts pressure on the wound, while Luke manages to finally shake off the attackers. Unfortunately, while getting away from the scene, the group stumbles upon a police patrol car. The cops notice someone bleeding on the front seat and order them to stop. Luke knows that they cannot outrun the police car, and so he reluctantly shoots them. After killing them on the spot, the group drives away as fast as possible. They stop a few miles down the road, but by then, Julian has already passed away. This devastates Theo so much that he walks away from the scene and breaks down into tears. But he doesn't get much time to mourn, as Luke summons him and the group heads for a safe house on a rural farm. After a few hours, they arrive at a country house guarded heavily by armed fish members. Theo cleans himself and later overhears the group electing Luke as their new leader. That evening, Miriam asks Theo to come with her because the young refugee wants to talk to him personally. He reluctantly follows her to a barn where Key is waiting for him. It is then revealed that the refugee is headed to the eastern coast of Britain, where she is to board a ship named Tomorrow. Furthermore, Julian has told Key to only trust her ex-husband in case anything happened to her during the mission. Now that Julian is dead, the refugee asks Theo to get her to the mysterious ship. However, Theo says he doesn't know anything about the mission and attempts to back out. This prompts Key to suddenly strip off her clothes, revealing her pregnancy. Theo stares at her in shock as the realization hits him. After almost 2 decades of global infertility, the first human to get pregnant is standing before him. He finally understands the magnitude of this mission and agrees to help her. Back at the country house, Luke informs everyone that the police could identify and arrest them anytime. He says that the plan of giving the young refugee to the human project has to be altered because of the incident. Everyone present in the house is aware that Key is pregnant, and Luke doesn't want to put her under unnecessary risk. Most of them also know that the extremist government will not accept a baby from a black refugee under any circumstances. Therefore, to save the baby from any potential risks, Luke insists that Key stay here until childbirth. The young refugee is a bit hesitant, but she has no choice but to agree. However, things take an unexpected turn later that night. Theo sees Luke escorting 2 boys inside the country house's kitchen. These are the same goons who attacked their vehicle on the way to Canterbury. So, Theo tiptoes downstairs and eavesdrops on their conversation, which reveals that it was Luke who organized the attack that killed Julian. He did this to take the power from her and lead the fishes into a war against the British government. They now plan to kill Theo and use the baby as a political tool to rally the common people to their side. Shocked by the revelation, Theo rushes upstairs and quickly wakes up Key and Miriam. He informs them about the fish's plan and says that they have to leave immediately. Despite the abrupt announcement, Key readily agrees, as she only trusts Theo at the moment. They then promptly go outside, sneak into a car, and drive away from the farm. A few hours later, they arrive at Jasper's cottage on the outskirts of central London. Theo introduces the young refugee and the midwife to his old friend. Jasper is more than delighted and even cooks healthy meals for all of them. During dinner, they talk about the Tomorrow, which is revealed to be a hospital ship disguised as a fishing boat. It will lead Key and her baby to the human project. Theo explains that the ship is scheduled to stop at Bexhill, which is a refugee camp near the eastern coast of Britain. Upon hearing this, Jasper reveals that he has just the right person to help them get into Bexhill. He knows a cop that frequently buys weed from him.
You know, mate, sometimes it takes a little peek of the poop, you know what I'm saying?
Unfortunately, the next morning, things begin to go south for the group. Everyone wakes up to the loud alarm sounds, and Jasper quickly checks the CCTV cameras. It turns out the fishes have found tire tracks heading into the cottage. This alarms the old man, and he urges Theo to promptly leave with his friends. Jasper says that he'll stay back and try his best to stall the fishes. He then gives them directions to an abandoned school, where his cop friend will be waiting. As soon as the trio leaves, Jasper calmly feeds poison to his mentally ill wife. Not long after, the fishes barge inside the property, looking for Theo. They eventually find documents about the 3 going towards Bexhill. This worries the old man, and he makes a last-ditch effort by cracking a joke to stall them, but Luke does not find it funny and mercilessly shoots him between the eyes. Meanwhile, Theo is in the woods nearby and sees his friend sacrificing himself for the greater good. The sight devastates him, but now he's even more determined to get Key to Bexhill. Therefore, he escorts them inside Jasper's car and drives them away. The group stops near some abandoned buildings late that night to take some rest. The following morning, Theo wakes up and learns that they are near an abandoned school. He finds Key sitting on a swing outside, while Miriam is in one of the classrooms. Suddenly, they hear a siren nearby and immediately step out of the school. They are then stopped by a military vehicle whose driver instructs them to remain still. Theo realizes that this may be the cop that his old old friend was talking about. So he yells out that Jasper sent them to this location. Upon hearing this, the cop invites them to his car and quickly heads towards Bexhill. He has no idea that Key is pregnant, nor does he care why they are headed towards the refugee camp. A few hours later, they arrive at Bexhill, which is heavily guarded by armed soldiers. The cop then opens the door and explains that a gypsy woman named Miraculously is waiting for them inside. She will help them get accommodation and other amenities for the night. Following this, the trio gets into a bus that takes them to the heart of Bexhill refugee camp. But at this critical moment, Key's water suddenly breaks. She screams in pain, which alerts a nearby police officer. Miriam distracts him by acting like she has been possessed by a spirit. This is enough to allow Key and Theo to pass on, but she gets taken away. Moments later, the two meet the gypsy woman, Mirachi, by the roadside, and she leads them to their room. That evening, Key goes into labor and struggles to give birth, but Theo helps her to the best of his abilities, and a baby girl is eventually born. This is the first human to be born in 18 years. The following day, a loud knock is heard on their door. Theo opens it only to find the cop from yesterday along with Mirachi. He informs them that the fishes have bombed the security perimeter of the refugee camp. Suddenly, he catches Key trying to hide something under the blanket and forces her to show what it is. It is then revealed that the cop was informed that Theo and the young refugee have bounties on their heads. This is why he is here, to capture and submit them to the authorities. He's pissed because they didn't bring any pot. He then points a gun at them and forces everyone to step outside. But as the group reaches the lobby, Mirachi suddenly pushes the cop off the stairs. Theo uses this opportunity and grabs a heavy rock lying nearby. He then smacks the cop and ends his pathetic life for good. That's harsh. In the aftermath of this incident, Mirachi leads them to an alley where several refugees have gathered for a protest. Things are beginning to get tense, as several of these protesters have assault rifles. The trio somehow manages to slip away quietly and heads towards an underground canal, but just when they are about to reach their destination, the fishes show up out of nowhere and capture them. Luke then forcibly takes Key and the baby into a nearby apartment building, while Theo and the gypsy woman are left behind with the other fishes. However, the British army arrives moments later and opens fire indiscriminately. Chaos ensues as the fishes fire back, allowing Mirachi and Theo to escape. He tells her to wait for him at the canals and then runs towards the apartment where Key was taken. The building is under heavy attack from the British military, and Theo passes by several corpses on the way inside. He eventually finds Key and the baby on the second floor and attempts to leave with them, but Luke, who is engaged in battle nearby, orders them to stop. Just when it seems all hope is lost, an explosion rocks the place, and Luke is instantly killed. Theo takes full advantage of this opportunity and escorts Key out of the building. They pass by several armed people, including the British soldiers and the fishes, but everyone is awestruck by the baby's presence, and they even temporarily stop fighting and allow them to leave. Seconds later, the war resumes again, so Theo and Key run away from there. They soon meet Mirachi, who leads them to the underground canal. She stays behind while Theo, Key, and the baby row a small boat away to the rendezvous point. During this time, Key notices some bloodstains on the boat and panics that she's bleeding. However, Theo reveals that it is his blood, as he had been hit by a bullet while trying to get to her. The young woman is devastated to learn that her savior is dying, but she promises that she will name her child after him. Theo smiles upon hearing this, before eventually losing consciousness. The film ends as he passes away. While their boat reaches the tomorrow, we can hear the sound of giggling children on the ship, indicating that the world may have some hope after all. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.